Hey everyone! Welcome back to another Think Spree video, the channel where curiosity doesn't kill the cat, it just makes it mildly more introspective. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button before we dive in. Seriously, go for it. I'll wait. It's like giving us a high five, except it's with your mouse or thumb. And if you're already subscribed, congratulations, you're now 37% more likely to survive a horror movie. Today, we're diving into a delightfully twisted topic, the weird psychology of why we love villains. From the chaotic brilliance of the Joker, to the obsessive charm of Joe Goldberg, to the moral dissent of Walter White, we're talking about the bad guys, the ones we should hate, but somehow, weirdly, don't. Or maybe even root for. It's a little messed up. But hey, so is the human brain. Let's kick things off with a simple question: why do we, as totally normal, law-abiding citizens who pay taxes and occasionally recycle, end up loving people who do horrible things? Let's start with the Joker, a character who literally wants to watch the world burn, and yet has become a pop culture icon. Whether it's Heath Ledger's menacing unpredictability in The Dark Knight, or Joaquin Phoenix's hauntingly tragic version in Joker, audiences keep walking out of theaters saying, "Wow. I get it." And that's the first psychological hook, empathy through backstory. Give a villain a compelling enough origin story, and suddenly we're not just watching, we're feeling. We see how society failed Arthur Fleck. We see his isolation, the mental health neglect, the constant humiliation. And even though we know that blowing up a hospital is, like, objectively bad, we've already connected with him emotionally. Empathy doesn't mean approval, but it blurs the line. That leads us to our first term of the day, dark empathy. It's like regular empathy, but with eyeliner and daddy issues. Dark empathy is when we understand and resonate with a villain's pain, even if we don't condone their actions. It's the psychological cocktail that makes you say, okay, murder is bad, but also his boss was a total jerk and that one guy really had it coming. Now let's hop over to another fan-favorite antihero/murder boy, Joe Goldberg, from You. Joe is, let's be honest, a complete psychopath. He stalks, manipulates, lies, kills, and does it all with a soft voiceover narration that makes it sound like he's just trying to find love at a bookstore, not dismembering people in his spare time. And that's what makes Joe so dangerous, and so compelling. He lets us into his head. He narrates every thought. We know his intentions, and even when they're deeply twisted, we're right there with him. Joe isn't a villain with a maniacal laugh. He's quiet, articulate, well-read, and, dare I say it, kind of charming? There's another term psychologists love for this: narrative bias. When we see the story from someone's point of view, especially when they're telling us their side, we're more likely to sympathize with them. If the whole show you had been told from the victims' perspectives, Joe would be pure nightmare fuel. But because he's our narrator, our window into the story, we can't help but lean in. Also, Penn Badgley has that "I could fix him" energy. But remember folks, this is a PSA, you cannot fix him. He will absolutely lock you in a glass box. Let's move on to the king of moral ambiguity, Walter White from Breaking Bad. Here's a man who starts as a mild-mannered chemistry teacher with cancer, and ends up running a drug empire, poisoning children, and letting people die, all while somehow keeping millions of viewers on his side. That's a character arc with whiplash. So why do we root for Walt, even as he turns into Heisenberg? First, relatability. In the beginning, Walt is the everyman. Overqualified, underpaid, and facing a terminal illness. His actions feel like a desperate attempt to provide for his family. And that initial motivation buys him a whole lot of audience goodwill. Then there's the idea of slippery slope morality. When a character takes one tiny unethical step, and we justify it, it becomes easier to justify the next one, and the next, until we're standing in a metaphorical desert watching Walt blow up half the Southwest and thinking, well, he did warn them. This taps into what psychologists call moral disengagement, the mental gymnastics we do to rationalize bad behavior. He's doing it for his family. Those people deserved it. At least he's not as bad as Gus. It's like playing moral limbo. How low can we go before we finally admit, okay, yeah, that's evil? And sometimes we never quite get there, especially if the villain is charismatic, complex, or, let's be honest, well-dressed. Speaking of charisma, let's talk about charismatic villains. These are your Lokis, your Killmongers, your Hannibal Lecters, people who are charming, stylish, smart, and incredibly dangerous. They're the ones who could stab you in the back, and you'd thank them for it because it was probably a metaphor or something. Why are we so into them? Well, partly because humans are drawn to confidence. Charisma is magnetic. Villains who are suave and self-assured trigger our admiration, even if our logical brain is like, yeah, but he eats people. Our emotional brain is like, yes, but, with manners. There's also the psychological thrill of transgression. Villains break the rules. They do the things we're not allowed to do. And part of us, the hidden, shadowy, repressed part, finds that exciting. Carl Jung called it the shadow self, the part of our psyche that contains all the desires we suppress in order to fit into society. Villains let that part of us out to play, vicariously. We'd never rob a bank or manipulate someone into a meth empire, but watching someone else do it with style? That's pure catharsis. Let's also consider something called the anti-hero phenomenon, characters who exist in the gray area. They're not good, not quite evil, just incredibly human. Think Tony Soprano, Dexter, or even Deadpool. These aren't traditional villains, but they operate outside moral norms, and we love them for it. Why? Because they reflect reality better than the goody two-shoes hero. Let's be honest, perfect protagonists can be kind of boring. Watching Superman save the day is fine. But watching a flawed, messy, compromised character try to be good? That's compelling. Because that's us. Messy. Conflicted. Trying. Failing. Trying again. And sometimes villains just say the quiet part out loud. They expose the hypocrisy in the system. Killmonger from Black Panther is a prime example. Yeah, he's extreme, but his points about colonialism and inequality hit hard. Sometimes the villain is just the only one telling the truth, even if they go about it in horrible ways. So what does all of this say about us? Are we all secretly terrible people with a soft spot for chaos? Not necessarily. Loving villains isn't a moral failure, it's a sign of psychological complexity. We're capable of holding multiple truths at once. A character can be evil and empathetic, dangerous and relatable, terrifying and tragic. And in a weird way, villains give us hope. Because if we can understand them, the worst of the worst, maybe there's hope for understanding ourselves. Our shadows. Our flaws. Our anger. Our pain. And okay, maybe our weird obsession with crime documentaries too. You know who you are. You're folding laundry while watching a show called How Brenda Got Away with It and thinking, honestly, Brenda was resourceful. So next time you find yourself rooting for the villain, whether it's a clown prince of crime, a stalker in love, or a chemistry teacher turned drug kingpin, just remember, it's not weird. It's human. And a little weird. But mostly human. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the deliciously dark world of villain psychology, go ahead and give this video a like, leave a comment telling us your favorite villain, and why you'd probably date them, and of course, subscribe for more weekly mind-melting content. We've got more weird, wonderful, and brain-tickling videos coming your way, so stay curious, stay kind, and try not to start a criminal empire on the side. This has been Think Spree, where the only villain is not hitting that bell icon. Catch you next time.